now let's learn the quotient rule. What's the derivative rule for the quotient of two functions? So we have f of x divided by g of x, and we want to take the derivative of this. So again, we're going to go back to the definition of the derivative. So this is the limit as h goes to 0 of f of x plus h divided by g of x plus h minus f of x divided by g of x, and all of that divided by h. Okay, we can simplify this expression. We can multiply the numerator and the denominator by g of x plus h times g of x, and we'll get the limit as h goes to 0. So the g of x plus h cancels here, so we'll have a f of x plus h times g of x, and then we'll have a minus f of x times the g of x plus h, and all of that will be divided by h times g of x plus h times g of x. Okay, again, we want to exhibit a derivative of f in the numerator and a derivative of g in the numerator. If we just look at the first term, we have an f of x plus h times g of x, so we can subtract f of x times g of x, and then we'll see a difference in f divided by h will give us a derivative. So if we subtract f of x times g of x, then we'll have to also add f of x times g of x. And hopefully that will work out in the second term. So let's see how that works. So this is the limit as h goes to 0. So we have an f of x plus h times g of x, and then we subtract f of x times g of x. So that will be the first group of terms we work with. And then we're going to add f of x times g of x. So this is a g of x plus h. So let's keep the minus sign here. And then we'll have a f of x times g of x plus h. And we subtracted f of x times g of x, so we need to add f of x times g of x. There's a minus sign here, so minus times minus is plus, so we can have a minus f of x times g of x. And that will be the second term. And then all of this is divided by h times g of x plus h times g of x. So what do we have here? We have a common factor of g of x, and we have an f of x plus h minus f of x, and we have a common factor of f of x, and then we have a g of x plus h minus g of x. So that's starting to look like derivative of f in the first term, derivative of g in the second term. So let's fix the denominator. We don't need this extra g of x plus h times g of x, so we can factor that out. So that's the limit as h goes to 0. We can take the 1 over g of x plus h times g of x. And that whole thing can multiply these two pieces. So the first piece, we have a limit as h goes to 0. We have an f of x plus h minus an f of x divided by h. And all of that limit here, that's our derivative, is multiplied by g of x. And then the second piece now, we have a minus, so we have an f of x that doesn't depend on h. And then we have a limit as h goes to 0. So this piece now is g of x plus h minus g of x. And that is divided by h. So that becomes our second derivative. And all of that was multiplied by this in the front. And if we take the limits now, the multiplier in the front becomes 1 over g of x squared. We can just set h equal to 0. The difference in f divided by h becomes f prime. And the difference in g divided by h becomes g prime. So this becomes f prime of x times g of x, and then minus f of x times g prime of x, all divided by g of x squared. And that's the quotient rule. So in order to remember the quotient rule, you have the derivative of the top divided by the bottom. So f is the top, g is the bottom. The derivative of the top divided by the bottom is the derivative of the top times the bottom minus the top times the derivative of the bottom over the bottom squared. That's how you remember it. Okay, let's look at an example. Let's see what is the derivative of the quotient of two functions. Let me pick an easy function. So x squared minus 1 divided by x squared plus 1. Okay? The derivative of the top is 2x. The derivative of the bottom is also 2x. So this is equal to the derivative of the top, 2x, times the bottom, x squared plus 1, minus the top times the derivative of the bottom over the bottom squared. And we can simplify this. So this is 2x cubed minus 2x cubed. So the x cubed term cancels. This is 2x minus 2x. So that becomes 4x. So this is 4x divided by x squared plus 1 squared. And that's the quotient rule. Okay, so what do you need to remember about the quotient rule? You need to remember that the derivative of the top divided by the bottom is equal to the derivative of the top times the bottom minus the top times the derivative of the bottom over the bottom squared. I remember that from 40 years ago. I'm Jeff Chasnov. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.